Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my first YouTube video. Sorry if it sucks. If you're going through the same project, hope it helps you. So today, I'm gonna be putting factory power steering into a standard non-EPS model. This should be the same on the 800s, 900s, or anything that didn't come with factory EPS. So all the pumps that I found, I did a bunch of cross-referencing on Polaris's website. All the pumps I found, all the way from the 800 that came with EPS to the 570, even the thousands, all had the same pump. And in like 2015 or 16, I don't remember exactly, they changed the part number. It's just a different pump, or a different gear, sorry, but it all bolts in the same. So as far as I understand, to do this project, you can use any power steering gear off a factory Polaris RZR. The only difference is the shafts. So today I'm gonna be showing you guys on a RZR 800. Like I said, it'll work on a 900 or anything else. Just make sure that the parts that you buy are gonna fit your make and model. So this video is intended for anyone with an 800 or a 900 non-EPS that doesn't wanna spend the 650 bucks for the Super ATV kit, or even the $500 for the Tusk kit. You can have bolt-in factory power steering for under $300. So first, let's go over what I bought. I started with, like I said, I just got on eBay, did some searching, and I was able to find all this for a RZR 570. Now, I paid $200 for the gear and both shafts. It was listed on there like $240, $250, I think, and I made them an offer at $200, and they went ahead and shipped it to me. This bracket here, this is the factory bracket to bolt it into a 800. That was $20 additional, so I've got 220 bucks and basically a factory power steering system here. Now, when I was looking online, I couldn't find any videos on this. There were some write-ups, and the biggest thing that everyone's worried about is these two plugs right here. This one's pretty easy, power and ground. Little spade connector, you can stick it in there. Hook it up to a direct battery with a 10-foot fuse, or a 10 amp fuse, I apologize, and you're good to go. Now, this one was the challenge. So I did find an aftermarket supplier for both of these plugs, and I'll put that link in the description for anybody that wants those. Together, they were over $85 shipped. So me trying to save money here, that's why I'm doing this instead of the Tusk or the Super ATV kit. I am going to use these connectors here. These are low temperature solder heat shrink connectors. So I'm gonna take a couple of these guys. Let's see if I can focus there. I'm gonna cut it down to where the solder will actually slip over these pins. And then I'm gonna heat it with a heat gun, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna solder a wire lead to the pin. And then after that, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill both of these full of silicone to keep any moisture out. Again, if you had a factory harness that you were able to cut these plugs off of, or if you wanted to spend the $85, I will leave the link to those in the description. All right, so I wanna start this on the bench, because I'm gonna pre-wire this motor before I go to put it in the RZR. I think it's gonna be a lot easier than trying to sit on my head and do that. Now, the 3 wires that I'm gonna use a trailer wire, because there's 4 wires together, and they're all 4 different colors, so it's perfect for this kind of stuff. And there's 16 gauge wire, which is plenty for this setup. This white one on the end, I'm just gonna pull off and have 3 wire connectors. Now, the ones on the factory harness that we're gonna tie to are green, yellow, and orange. Unfortunately, trailer connectors don't have orange, so anything orange, I'm gonna use brown. But I'm gonna run green to green, yellow to yellow, and brown to orange. Now, as I said before, these are those little heat shrink connectors. I don't know if you can see it, but I cut them down, and that's a little piece of solder in there. So when I stick these into the pin connector, and then I heat it up with a heat gun that I got sitting right here, it's gonna melt the solder in all 3 of those pins, and I'm gonna have a soldered connection. All right, so this was attempt 2. Attempt 1 was a fail. I was unable to record it too. But as you can see, if you're sitting here looking at the plug like this, green is gonna go on the very, very top all the way to the right. Orange, or brown in my case, is gonna go right next to it. And then yellow is gonna go on the bottom. Now, after trying this, my suggestion is this one here is just 2 spade connectors. You can get that. But I would go to OTB and just buy this plug, because it's got 3 pigtails that come out of it. You crimp them in and you'd be done. I've been messing with this for like a half hour, and it already still feels kind of sketchy. So I'm probably just gonna end up ordering the plug anyway. Yep, so like I told you guys at the beginning, I'm gonna do this live. You guys are gonna see all my struggles, all my mess ups. So speaking from experience, don't try that, because I spent probably wasted probably half hour messing with that, and I was just never happy with the way they were in there. So I'm just gonna suck it up and I'm only gonna buy the one plug. I'm gonna use spade country for the other one. So that cuts the price in half, call it 35, 40 bucks. And it's gonna be much more reliable than whatever the hell I was just trying to do. So take my advice and just do it that way. It's gonna save you a lot of time. If I would have ordered that a week ago when I ordered the rest of the power steering, my razor would be done right now. So, all right, so now we get back to the razor itself, disassembling the razor. You can see I kind of already started a little bit, but I'll walk you through it. I jacked it up, stuck a jack stand under it, pulled this wheel off because it makes it a lot easier to get to this steering knuckle right here. As you can see here, that's just a 17 millimeter nut and a 15 millimeter bolt. I used a 15 millimeter box then. It wasn't too hard to get behind it, and go ahead and send it off with an impact. Of course, you can move the wheel back and forth in order to line it up a little better. Now, inside the cab can be a little bit trickier. Probably the hardest part is getting this steering wheel off. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump to a little clip that I recorded yesterday, pulling the steering wheel off. It's before I brought the tripod out or anything, so you'll just have to kind of suffer through it. Okay, so when you go to take the steering wheel off, unless it's been off before, it's gonna be a bear. So what you wanna do is you wanna take a socket, find the right size socket, and Polaris put like a little plastic nub in there so it doesn't fit very easily. You gotta put it in there and hammer it in. Okay, just tap it in, push that nub out of the way. And I've already taken this off once, so it should be fairly loose. And then what I've done is I usually spray the hell out of it with a PV Blaster or whatever your penetrant of choice is. And the best way to do it is to get in the chair, lower the steering wheel to where it's right out in front of you, and you just work it back and forth, yank on it, pull it all kinds of different directions, pull on it as hard as you can. And if that doesn't work, like in this case, it wouldn't work. So I did this before I started filming. A trick my dad always taught me was use an air hammer. So if you notice, it's got that little divot in there. Well, this air hammer fits right inside of there perfectly. Now, if you just hammer on it like this, you're gonna mess the threads up. You're gonna mushroom out the top. So what you wanna do is you wanna take the nut and you wanna thread it on, 1 or 2 or 3 threads. Now you take one hand and you pull on this, and the other hand, you hit the middle with the air hammer. And as you can see, it worked like a charm. And now the steering wheel's free. So it looks to me like you got a little, there's a small bolt here, and then the 2 bolts here on the side. And then since the shaft is already loose on the bottom, this whole thing should just pull right out. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so there's a little bolt here that holds this piece up. And I used these Allen sockets. It's a number 4, pretty small one for that. And then you got a number 6 for these ones. And if you tip it up like this, you can see that there's a nut on the backside. So you just get in there with an adjustable wrench or whatever you got. All right, so just keep playing with it, you'll get it eventually. All right, guys, so I put the camera down and I fought this thing and fought this thing and fought this thing. I mean, I've been fighting this thing for probably a half hour, and I finally got it figured out. So I put the bracket on the back of the pump first because someone on one of the forums said that you can't get to the bolts with this pump in. Well, now that it's in, I can see that it's absolutely false. You can get to this one with a wrench. You can get to that one with a wrench going out this direction. You can get to these two with pretty much whatever you want, a ratchet or an impact or whatever. Now that this is like this, you can set this pump on these tabs here and it won't slide off. You can stick it through, you can fish it through that full hole, and then you can come around here, and with it sitting on those tabs, you can wiggle that shaft into there, and then put your bolts in, and then you come back in here, line up all your bolts, and tighten it down. So I'm gonna show you how to do that now. All right, guys, while I was editing this video, I felt that this part wasn't as well explained as it should have been, and I wanted to correct that now. The order that these brackets go is that the brake and gas pedal assembly goes up against the firewall as it already was, and then the power steering bracket just goes right on top of it. And you use the existing studs that go through the firewall, and you just reuse the nuts as well and tighten them on there. I wasn't aware of this when I first started doing this. It looked to me like the power steering bracket went behind the gas pedal and brake assembly, so I unbolted that from the very beginning. If I were to redo this again, I would not have unbolted that bracket until this point. I would take the 4 bolts out of the brake and gas pedal assembly, slide the power steering bracket right on top of it, and bolt it right back down. As you can see from prior clips of the video, having that bracket loose and just flopping around in there causes more problems than it does good. I just wanted to take a second and make sure that was well explained so that you guys don't have the same issues I did. Now let's get back to the video. Hopefully that gets a good picture of it. So now I've got everything hooked up that way. Another tip, there's a spring on the back side of your gas pedal that hooks to a little plastic alley in the plastics here. Take a zip tie, put some tension on that spring and zip tie it to the gas pedal. Do that from the very beginning before you take a single bolt out, because that is going to keep that spring in place. Because I was fighting that for a minute too, trying to get all the stuff lined up, and that spring kept popping out. Well, once I figured that out, it went right in. So, take this guy, you gotta fish it through that hole, and then through the next one. I took the rubber boot out. My razor never had a rubber boot before and never caused any problems. So I'm not saying you can't do it this way with the boot in, but I'm saying I took the boot out. I set it in like that. You can't see what I'm doing back. Get it onto the threads, then I can just come in here and push it in the rest of the way. Yep, it's on. So now I just got to stick my bolt in here. Now that's in here. So now you got 4 bolts. You feed in through the backside, and the box is in. All right, so when I left you guys, I just got this in place. Well, I slipped the 4 bolts underneath there, and 3 out of 4 are super easy to get to. Get yourself a set of these ratchet wrenches. This one's a 9/16. It's not truly a 14. It's actually a 14 millimeter on the thing, but this angled end makes it a little easier for me to get to. So that's the one I was shooting. Now to get to this top one in this corner, you got to reach back behind. You can get to it fairly easily. Unfortunately, it's kind of slow with the ratchet wrench, but it's going. I put the steering shaft together like this and then just put the nut on top so it doesn't all come out. I will leave a screenshot to the parts list in the description here. So, just gotta take this guy now. Looks like the bottom end slips on. Again, I used a little bit of anti-seize and try not to get it all over myself. I'm just gonna put that on finger tight for now. Oh, of course. All right, so make sure this isn't completely angled down, because then it will bind up the U-joint apparently. All right, so remember, these go in the sides here. All right, so on these ones, make sure you don't push it in all the way, because it won't give you room to put the nut on the backside. So just be careful with that. And then once you get it in there, grab the backside with your 14 millimeter wrench. Get your number 6. All right. So as you guys can see, I've pretty much tore my razor apart. That's because I made the rookie move that hopefully you all can learn from. I took this very important bolt and I set it down for about a half a second, and it's gone. I'm gonna have to deal with that later. But for now, I figured I would get to the most important part, the wiring of these things. So like I said, this big plug here is just a power and ground, and then this other one has got those 3 wires that read off the speedo. 3 wires are on the speedo. So I've unplugged the speedometer plug, and I'm gonna strip this back, cut this little tape, pull this back a little bit, and find the 3 wires I'm looking for. And I'll tap into those and just kind of leave them hanging, because I did go ahead and order that part from OTB. When it comes in, I'll crimp it in, plug it in, and be done. All right, so for the ground, it's only 20 amp max, so it doesn't need to be anything super crazy. So I'm just using the existing ground that I already had for whoever put in the radio. It's a pretty good ground right here in a convenient spot. So I'm just gonna slip this. All right, that's on there pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and run it to there, zip tie it, and then run it down. So about right there is where this thing needs to be cut. Now I'm using all heat shrink connectors. The blue is plenty for what we're doing here. I always cut it a little long on purpose. All right, so if you're sitting at the plug with it installed, the ground goes on the uphill side. It's real hot right now. Wait till it cools off and put it in. Now for the power, I'm gonna run this straight to the battery. Positive wire, since it is hooked straight to the battery. I don't want power and ground to ever be able to touch and cause me problems, so I'll just slip a piece of heat shrink right over the end of the connector. Now, in addition to this, I am going to fill this whole plug full of silicone. I'm not going to do that until after I have everything done and I've tested it and I know for a fact that it works and that it works good. Because if I have to go back and do something else, it's going to be a nightmare. All right, so I wanted to test and make sure that this isn't going to draw power with the key turned off. So an old trick, it doesn't work on most modern day fuel injected engines just because there's so much stuff with memory and stuff like that that there's always some kind of draw. But a good way to test for a parasitic draw is you disconnect the negative terminal and you clip on a test light to it. And you stick the test light in the other end of the battery, and if there's no draw on it, the light won't come on. If there is a draw, it'll complete the circuit through the test light, and the light will come on. It'll show you that there's a draw on it. So for instance, when I flip the key on, this light's gonna come on. All right, so that proves that the test is accurate, it's working. So with this hooked up, and I made sure I put a fuse in there, it is not gonna draw power. So that's good to know. As you can see there, black and red. Red goes downhill, black goes on the uphill side with it installed in the machine. So with that, I'm going to put all this back together, and I'm gonna have to wait a couple days for that other harness to come in, and then I'll show you guys how to wire that. I'm gonna get a video of this, and hopefully you can see it. So this is just a speedo plug. You reach back up in there and unplug it. And if you separate it like this and you look in the back, you can see that they're numbered, 1, 2, 3. yellow, green, and orange. Those are the 3 wires that we're gonna have to tap into. I don't think I'm gonna tap into them this close. I think I'm gonna come back a little further and tap into them. But I'm just gonna hook that trailer wire connector in there with some really good connectors and heat shrink them. And I'll do that, and then I'll come back and show you guys what's next. All right, so now I got this all wrapped up. It might look kind of goofy. I brought the wires out of this side, and I kind of trimmed the plug just a little bit to kind of let them through. Whenever you flip this thing up, it actually plugs in like that to the back of the thing, to the back of the speedometer. So these 3 wires coming out are on the correct side to just come over and down to the to the power steering gear. So it might look a little goofy, but I think it's gonna make it easier to install it. All right, guys, so as you can see, I put the camera down, just went ahead and buttoned everything up. Put the center console back in, all that stuff seems good. Just plug the speedo back in. I zip tied a lot of these wires up and out of the way, try to clean stuff up a little bit. This wire is still hanging here because I ordered that plug yesterday, but I'm gonna have to wait a few days before it comes in. So, and then I'll finish. All right, guys, so this plug from OTB came in today. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. I mean, it is a $42 plug in pigtail, but I mean, they did a good job. Crimp the green to green, yellow to yellow, and then it's red in this case, not orange, but I'm gonna crimp red to brown. And then you can see this comes with a big fat heat shrink. Slip it over the whole connection, and then heat shrink that too, so that you have no risk of water getting in. I'd say it's pretty worth the 40 bucks. Now for the final step, I'm just gonna have to cut this wire down in a convenient spot, crimp in 3 connectors, and then plug it in. It should be half power steering. The pigtail that OTB sells is fairly long. I don't want a real ton of extra wire down here. So I'm gonna cut it where it's convenient to crimp it. And so it's right about there. All right, so it's crimped in and plugged in. I should now have power steering. Okay, weird. Looks like it instantly blew. I stuck a 15 amp fuse in there, and it blew it instantly, which is very strange. There's a possibility these are switched, but I don't think so. I was supposed to stop on the way home from work and grab fuses, but I forgot. All right, guys, so when I first tested this, I had a 15 amp fuse in there, and it blew immediately. I thought it needed a 20, but I had a 15 sitting around, so now I've got a 30. I'm putting in here as just a test, and it isn't popping the 30, and I've got power steering. So it's working. I'm not noticing anything heating up. And it's pretty noticeable. So it works, which is really good for me to know. I'm definitely not gonna leave this 30 amp fuse in here though. I'm gonna go to the store and buy some 20s. All right, guys. Well, I believe I'm done here. Final product came out awesome. I mean, as you can see, you can barely even see it under there. It looks factory, because it is. I dropped this bolt earlier, and I was able to go to the store and get one pretty close. I'm probably gonna go ahead and order the right one, but because this has a little bit of slack in it. But for now, it's gonna get the job done. So to recap here, I wanted to show this plug here. It's got a power on the bottom, a ground on the top, and then there's this other one on the top there that I use the OTB crimp and heat shrink connector. Well worth the $42 for that pigtail. Like I said, you know, I turn it on here. I definitely have power steering. I'm gonna take this thing out and go drive it around, see how it feels. And then when I come back, I'm gonna make sure I center the steering wheel, because I think it might be a little off. Well, all in all though, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, it's my first time. So I I know it's probably not the best, but I hope it's not the worst either, and you guys learned something from this, and maybe got an idea how to do this on yours. Thank you guys. See you next time.